This meeting of Norwood City Council will hereby come to order. Please rise for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in these council chambers. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo. Here. Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Ms. Stevenson.
Present.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Here.
Mr. Senker.
Here.
Mr. Breeden. Here.
All members are here. We do have a couple of requests to amend the agenda. The first is to add an ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2018 and declaring an emergency. That would come under introductory readings of ordinances. And I also am very pleased that we've been keeping this quiet for a couple of weeks, but I'm very pleased to ask if you would amend the agenda to allow Amy Grant from the American Heart Association to come forward just after adoption of the minutes for a presentation. So those are the two requests to amend the agenda. Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we amend the agenda as stated.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Yes. Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Senker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Breeden. Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Next, we have the minutes of the previous meeting of June 26, 2018, which were distributed by email. Ms. Stevenson,
Thank you. I move that we accept the minutes as if read.
seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Job well done, Mr. Gears. Quite lengthy. The motion on the floor is to approve the minutes as if read. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Senker.
Yes.
Mr. Breeden. Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Next, we have Amy Graham from the American Heart Association. Would you like to come forward, please? And I'm assuming that the chief and the assistant chief will be up here with you. Please.
No worry.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. The American Heart Association realizes and actually recognizes the critical life-saving role of EMS that provide the EMS care that is provided to members of the community, especially in STEMI systems of care. So just in case, STEMI systems is for heart attack patients, heart attack care. The amount of training and education that goes into giving the full equipment and the time to these EMS agencies, especially with the paramedics and the EMTs that are on the ambulance, to sustain the STEMI systems of care is truly, it's amazing because they have to work really hard to stay on top of things with clinical practice guidelines and the latest in medicine for STEMI and stroke patients. So Norwood Fire Department joins 497 other EMS agencies in the United States, and they are only one of 48 other EMS agencies in Ohio that are receiving the 2018 American Heart Association Mission Lifeline EMS Performance Achievement Award. To achieve a Bronze Performance Award, Norwood Fire Department had to achieve 75% or greater higher compliance score for each of the EMS quality measures for 3 to 9 months. The quality measures that are involved with this is that they are supposed to be doing a 12 lead EKG, so when you go into the hospital and they put a bunch of stickers on you, they're looking at your heart tracing. They need to do that on all patients greater than 35 years of age that are have non-traumatic chest pain. There are also a percentage of STEMI patients that are treated in transport that go straight to a hospital that can do the procedures for a patient suffering from a heart attack, and it's called a catheterization, and that's when you hear doctors that go in and open up arteries in the heart. Percentage of pre-hospital EKGs that are performed within 10 minutes of getting to the patient. So when you call 911 and the EMS agencies come to your house, they have a guideline to where they need to be doing the EKG within 10 minutes of meeting you, and they scored very high on that. And then also a percentage of patients that when the patient is under cardiac arrest and they resuscitate that patient out in the field and that patient regains a heartbeat, they're doing an EKG at that time too, because a lot of times when patients go down and they need CPR, it's because of a heart attack. So they perform very well in these measures. Again, we are recognizing the amount of lives that you all have saved. I personally have an experience with them. I'm also, besides working for the American Heart Association, I work as an ER nurse at Rookwood. And we had a patient, she was a female, 36 years old, that came in complaining of chest pain. We did an EKG, and she was having a heart attack. We called Norwood Fire Department. They were there instantly, and we took the patient over to Jewish. From the time she came into the door until the time we had her on the cath lab table was 36 minutes. National average for that and the recommendation for that is 90. So these guys are doing amazing work in your community and trying to keep everyone safe and protected and healthy. So we want to recognize all their hard work and their efforts and all their life-saving that they're doing every day, and we appreciate it, and we hope that you guys also appreciate what they're doing for your community. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you for the award, but I would be remiss to say that it's been a very long time since I rode in the paramedic unit. I'm still a paramedic, but this award goes out to the dedication and the guys that ride in there every single day, day in and day out, and they're just the best of the best in my opinion.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Hanrahan?
I want to say congratulations and thank you for doing this at council. People need to see the good things happening in this city.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We have no request to address council on agenda items or standing committees. We'll move on to introductory readings of ordinances. And the first is the ordinance which was added onto the agenda, an ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2018 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Sanker.
Madam President, I would recommend we have all three readings.
Seconded by Mr. Braden. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Breeden.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all three readings.
Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2018 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2018 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2018 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Bonso.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move that the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bonso.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So just to give just a little bit of background on this, for the most part, this ordinance just really focuses on funds that we've had more revenue in than we expected throughout the year. There's one fund that has less revenue than we expected during the year. So the auditor at the beginning of the year submits a certificate of estimated resources, basically to the county auditor, basically stating this is what we think that the revenue is going to be, or the expenses are going to be for each fund. And then throughout the year, if that changes, the auditor will submit an amended certificate to the county auditor, and then they'll look at it and approve it. And that's what happens. So after the 6 months, we have 6 months of financial reports so far. So he looked at it, could tell that there were some funds that were going to have more, and so he determined that we have more resources, and so that's why we are changing some of these funds.
Thank you, Mr. Bonso. I also got a text before the meeting started from Mr. Stith saying he had to work this evening, and that's why he's not able to be here. But all of these are outside of the fiscal emergency and therefore do not require the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission to review them and approve them. They were all outside of the fiscal recovery plan. Just so you know. Is there any other discussion? The motion on the floor is to pass the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We have no introductory resolutions or administration reports. We do have two other requests to address council. The first is Virginia Wallace. Would you come forward, please? Give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
Virginia Wallace, 1766 Williams Avenue, Norwood, Ohio, 45212. The reason I'm up here is I recently, in the last couple of days, heard a rumor that the place down at Mills and Carter where Haps used to be, which was a pony keg, was purchased by a council person, and they're turning it into low-income housing. You know, my feeling is we have enough of this in the city right now, and of all people to purchase or be involved in purchasing property like that, to me, would be someone on council. And I would like to know who it is. If anyone can answer that.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes, could someone repeat? I didn't catch where you're talking about.
Mills and Carter Avenue. She heard that someone had purchased it and was turning it into low-income housing, and she heard that it was a council member.
Someone on
Purchased it.
council had purchased it. Was involved in the purchase.
Mrs. Hanrahan?
I don't know for sure, but I heard Lydia's house purchase that.
Lydia's house?
And I don't know if that's the
What
case.
is Lydia's House? Is that an organization, part of the Vineyard or something?
Ms. Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam President. Mills and Carter, I think you're talking about the former pony
Yes,
keg?
pony
Yeah.
keg, right.
It was purchased by a nonprofit organization. The organization is called Lydia's House.
So no one on council is involved in that?
The co-founders are Meredith Owensby and Mary Ellen Mitchell. They are Norwood residents. Mary Ellen lives on Carter. Meredith lives in other property owned by the organization on Mills Avenue.
Well, my question is, why do we keep converting to the low-income housing? I mean, we need to be building our city back up as well. I mean, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some, but it's my understanding up on Montgomery Road that part of that's going to be on those condos, low-income housing. Am I correct? Do you know?
It's my understanding that Lydia's house purchased that at Mills and Carter to be transitional housing for people who transition out of Lydia's house and are getting back into the workforce. To be a transition until they can find their own place, is my understanding. Is that correct? Ms. Stevenson, do you have more information?
I can say that they recently did hold an open house to talk about the project. I'm happy to share some of that information with you. I don't have it on hand. Lydia's House provides emergency housing in a lot of cases to women and their children who are in crisis. Their home has been successfully placing women in housing and then into long-term housing for several years now, and many of those families call Norwood home. So they've been established for a while. I think what they responded to when they purchased the building was the fact that sometimes when women are transitioning out of temporary care, in terms of housing, temporary housing, not care, what they found was only low-income housing opportunities. So this is not designed to be
Is
a
these people
public.
coming out of, that are on drugs and stuff like that? I mean, that's another question then.
Lydia's House does not admit anyone who is actively needing any type of addictive care recovery. That's not who they serve. Again, I'd be happy to follow up with you to share more about the project.
But nobody on council was involved in that group that purchased this property. Is that correct?
Ms. Stevenson?
They're a nonprofit organization, so they do a lot of fundraising. I can't speak for everybody, but I've volunteered with them before and I have donated to their organization. But I
you're
don't
not in
own the
group
property.
that goes around and purchases these places for low-income housing.
Can
No,
you-
I was told that there was a council member involved.
I'd be happy to talk to whoever talked to you, but I can tell you, I don't own property. Not there.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I think this kind of just highlights how, the rumor mills kind of get going, and there's a lot of misinformation that gets spread around many subjects. I'm sure that the council person that you were probably told it was probably me, since I live 2 doors down from that place. But
I heard you were a council person that was involved.
Sure, yeah, and I appreciate you actually bringing it up and coming here, but no, I am not involved in any of it. I think that it's going to be a major improvement to that corner from what it was before. There was a lot of bad things that have happened there, and that's happened there over the years. And the cool thing about the model that they have at Lydia's house, that there's going to be an on-site full-time staff member that will be living there, and so they're going to be there to help guide and help these people get to where their next place to go. It's not just going to be a place that is Section 8 and just left for good, just abandoned, if you will, like many of the other places. But this will actually be a really good thing for the neighborhood, and it'll really help these women. It's just women that have children under 5, I think, or under 6 that are allowed to use Lydia's house, and so those are the people that they're intending to be, staying there as they keep transitioning back into wherever their life takes them. So, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that you brought it up, because I'm glad that we were able to correct it.
How many apartments can they put in that building? I mean, I only know because somebody I was related to used to own it.
It's an 8-unit building. It's an 8-unit building.
And that's probably from the past.
That's originally what it was.
Was originally there. Mr. Sanker?
Yeah, Madam President, 2 things. One, I believe, I don't know whether you realize, but currently Lydia's house has a house on Mills Avenue about 3 or 4 doors up from the Moose that they've been operating for maybe 8 years.
Long time.
Or
Never
so.
know it was there. They're
Yeah,
very
and
well
they
maintained
currently
home.
have a place there, and that, so that the need seems to have grown to a point where they're able to kind of expand. But Mayor, did you want to elaborate on this, or?
Yeah,
Mayor Williams?
somebody mentioned a rumor mill, and to show you how it works, they took plywood down there, and the kids painted it up, because they wanted to cover the windows and make it look nice, while it was in the transition. Well, they painted the windows up. It was kind of cute. And I drove by and thought, oh, that's kind of nice. And then somebody called and said, it's an illegal sign. And I thought, come on. And it comes back to this rumor stuff. So, we're going to start attacking them. But I can tell you this, driving by there, that building was a total mess. And I don't know what kind of return they expect, but they've sunk a fortune into that. They had 2 truckloads of stuff just for the roof. So I don't know the particulars, but I know this. There's a lot of money being invested into that parcel of property, which that was the corner down there. That was the, ugly corner. And what the intent is, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, from driving by it every day over the years and watching it transition.
Well, it sat empty for a while.
And now it's going to be occupied, and they sunk a fortune into it. So when you take a building like that, dilapidate a building like that, and take an organization that invests money into it, and that are constantly involved, I don't think they're going to let it, I almost said a bad word, go. Anyway, I think it will kind of improve it, and that's just my thought by just watching it from the outside.
It just concerns me when you hear the low-income housing.
I think it will be
It
definitely
seems
an
like to me
asset
that
to
we
the city.
need- Yeah.
Rumors and social media, don't believe anything you hear.
And like I said, we've got the condos up here that are going in, which is supposedly part of that's gonna be low-income housing,
Senior,
Senior housing.
senior housing.
you and I qualify.
That's okay, I guess I'll stay at my house, you probably will too for a while.
Mrs. Hanrahan?
Thank you, I'd like to correct that. It is considered senior housing, but they allow children.
Did I hear once, when they spoke up here, they said maybe 1 or 2 children or something?
Well,
Or is there not a limit?
one person who rents has to be 55 and older, and they say there's no way they could keep children out. But it would have to be someone over 55, and the story kept changing as we heard it time after time, so.
No, we don't qualify.
No,
But
we-
this one you don't need to worry about, trust. The one on the corner of Mills and Carter will definitely be an asset to the city. Lydia's house does good
I
work.
think that was a nice presentation that the fire department received. You notice my son tried to ignore me. I seen him when I walked in.
He tries to ignore me too.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Next is Pastor Sonny James. You know the routine.
Please remind me. Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue here in Norwood. First, I'd like to acknowledge we have a family here in Norwood that has experienced a tragedy. And on yesterday evening, a ton of the youth called an assembly together in the high school grass area from 8 to 10. And I was so pleased to be there to just hold on to some of the family members. I just want to, as a community, that I know all of our hearts go out to their family at this hour, and that we just want to continue to lift them up. And even more importantly, as I was praying with some of the youth, you would hear comments like, well, it should be me, or I don't think I'm going to make it through, or hey, don't go do anything stupid. And I just want to encourage all of the adults in Norwood that we're all peers to our children, and we're all mentors to our children. And so let us embrace these young people, because tragedy does hit young people in a variety of different ways. And they may be smiling for one moment, and then the next moment, it's very possible that they make an ill-advised choice for themselves. So our hearts go out. I was very, very pleased to see administration from the school board there, as well as staff, as well as our newly appointed superintendent. And it just shows how, we as a community, we've come through so many different adverse situations. But it's times like these, even though they're heartbreaking, and even though that they're very traumatic, it's times like these that show how resilient Norwood is. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so pleased to be a part of this community. So I just want to encourage also Mr. Brother Jimmy Bird did an exceptional job praying for the family. And so I was just very excited to see so many people come out, especially so many young people. And so our hearts should stay extended to them. Now, that wrapping it up, on June 30th, Elevations Enrichment, which is ran by Kirsten James, just hosted its very first youth mental health training, first aid training. We had 34 registered participants. The next scheduled date was the 21st. Now, because of the size of the room, we prefer to keep it around 30 participants each training. So now the next available training date that's actually available is August the 11th. The 21st is no longer available. And for August the 11th, that training is actually approximately, I know at least 18 people are already registered for that. So I am going to ask council's permission that at the next council, which I believe is going to be on the 13th, that we be allowed to come and give an update, a report on the youth first aid mental health training, that we can let you all know. Some of the reports that came out of that first training, we had people crying, saying, hey, I thought I was coming to just do old Reverend James a favor, and I really needed to be here. My son, for one, mental health is personal to my family. We have personally adopted 2 boys with disabilities. And to see my one son there almost in tears, being able to identify some of the struggles that he himself has dealt with over his years, and to actually get solutions to help him with that. So I want to encourage council, Just as we had mentioned another nonprofit in the community, which, by the way, although I'm not on council, I do want to, Lydia's House has done great work in our community, and we applaud them. At the same time, the same support that Lydia's House gets from council members, whether it's volunteerism or whatever it is, I do encourage you to contact Kirsten James and get involved with Elevations Enrichment. It's an after-school program, whereas traditional after-school programs only go until 4:15, 4:30, whereas Elevations would go until 6 p.m. And then during the summer, there are no after-school programs, but Elevations continues. The month of June, including Sunday, we only had, I believe, 8 days free on the calendar for kids. This is the calendar for July. And so as you see, there are only 7 days in July that there aren't any activities for the youth to do in Norwood. And all of these activities are free to the children. So I just want to encourage council to get involved, just as we get involved with several of the other nonprofits. Shoot out emails for the mental health training. Tell your peers, hey, go and support. If they're not available, they're not available. But please do come out and support all of the nonprofits that work so hard, especially those that work hard for families and children. I do think that we should rally around those. So God bless you. If there are any questions about that, anyone can email kjames.elevations@gmail.com, or they can contact Kirsten James at 513-485-4675, or of course my cell is 513-487-8843, but she is the executive director. I'm closing, but I want to give kudos out. Not last council, but council before, our mayor had made a challenge to council to ask more questions and to make further inquiries. And I want to commend you all because you all did just that at the last council meeting. And you brought a gentleman in and you were able to ask questions. And I believe not only myself but other residents were able to hear more clarity of questions that were somewhat confusing or just left in limbo. And then I experienced one of the best council meetings that I've had ever here in Norwood, to see us all not on the same page, but still willing to sit down at the table, talk to one another, and then look, we all came back again. So that's how it should be across the board with everyone. So God bless. If you have any questions about the mental health training, please get in touch with us, but please send it out on your social media, encouraging others to support. Not just saying, I know about it. I do want to give thanks to one of our council members. She did contact my wife almost immediately, Stevenson, and inquire about it. At this point, there are no CEUs granted, but everyone does get a certificate, which I think this should be for every child, every parent, every pastor, every youth leader, everybody.
Thank you.
And counselor. So please support. God bless. Have a good day. Thank you.
We have no other requests to address council. Is there any unfinished business? Mrs. Hanrahan.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to, the mayor is here, I would like to ask him if he's gotten any information or can update us on the outstanding claims with Renovations.
Before I ask him, I can comment. I have been calling, and I received a call back late this afternoon from Marissa at Benovation. The mayor's office did receive an invoice that Mr. Schlattman spoke of, and he said that on the following Monday there would be another C9 payment that would take us up to June of 2018, and that has not been received. However, there was an invoice that was sent, and I know that Brenda has, I was going to address that a little later, but Brenda Osterday, the mayor's secretary, has started the paperwork for that. As of today, the city has not gotten the check to Benovation yet to pay those claims. In my discussion with Marissa today, Their vendor was supposed to have gotten them the information for the 2018 by yesterday, and they hadn't gotten that, and she was going to keep me apprised of that. She felt fairly certain that it was going to come by tomorrow. So with that information, I will turn that over to you.
She is much more diplomatic than I am, so I'll temper my remarks as hard as it is. He did say that we would get that next one Monday. We have not received it. And that was my concern from day one. And so Donna's been dealing with them, and I don't know when and if they'll keep their word. And so, you know, if they delay it, there's nothing new. I think I've said that from the very beginning. So I'll be patient and diplomatic until until we get what we're supposed to get.
I call every day. Mrs. Hanrahan.
Mr. Schlotman said that he would get to us a copy of the agreement with the city they have. I have not received it.
I have not either, and I was reminded of that when I read the minutes, and I left that message as well.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
And like I said, I just totally forgot about it until I read the minutes, and so I left that message.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mrs. Hanrahan. Any other unfinished business? Mr. Sanker.
I know, Madam President, we had a letter from the mayor about high weeds and that on different properties around what was going on with a few of them, and one in particular was a playing card company. I would like to thank the mayor for getting the crews out there. They're not city crews, but there have been at least, they were there yesterday, almost all day, and today. There were at least 2 crews over there cleaning up the at least the front of the property, which is what you see when you go by. So I would appreciate your sticking on them and making sure that they do uphold their end of the
I think
deal
there was
there.
a citizen that was involved in that too, making calls to everybody and it helped move it along. I'm in discussions constantly. We're trying to get around it. The individual that owns it is an extremely wealthy individual who takes care of large developments such as Goodyear and out in California and everything. So I've been consulting with some people trying to figure out a way to move him all center, and we'll continue to fight.
Mr. Bonso.
Thank you, Madam President. Question for the mayor about the playing card company, if I could.
About what?
About the U.S. Playing Card Company site,
Yes, sir.
or the former site. Do they have a vacant property registration at the site? Like, is the city enforcing, do you know? And we can find out later, you can always get back to us, but are we enforcing our vacant property registration ordinance as
Mr. Mayor?
regards to that site?
Well, if you're referring to a vacant building ordinance where if they're not marketing it, then they need a license. But if they're marketing it, the way I understand it, they don't. But I'll check into that.
Okay.
That's my understanding. I certainly don't want to make a legal opinion. But seriously, that's my understanding. If they're not marketing it, then the vacant building license can be invoked. If they are marketing it, no matter how sincere they are, I'm not so sure we can, but I will check with the law director's office.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bonso. Any other unfinished business? Ms. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In our last regular meeting, we discussed moving into Committee of the Whole the ordinance regarding the market garden.
Y'all are taking all my unfinished business. I've set one.
I'll stop right there. Thank you.
I was going to wait to let you all do your thing first. I tried to get both Mr. Stoker and Mr. Orris together, and that was a little difficult, finding a date when both of them could be here, and I think it's important for both of them to be here. So the first date that they can both make it is Monday, July the 23rd at 6 o'clock here in council. That is the day before the parade and our council meeting that is normally canceled because of the parade. But Monday, July the 23rd, will be announcing, I will just announce now, a committee of the whole meeting for us to discuss the garden market ordinance and the recommendation of the planning commission. So that will be Monday, July the 23rd at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Any other unfinished business? Mr. Sanker?
Yes, Madam President, just because it has passed, but the fireworks on July the 4th, let's commend the fireworks committee for the job well done. The amount of work that they put into that, generating sponsors to put that on. It is a very good show down at the football field down there, and the party prior to it was very good as well. Mr. Braden is pretty influential in that down there. So I would like to commend them on the job well done again this year. Along with that, I would like to say that the pool is getting a lot of use this year with the weather the way it is, and it's good to see it open and actually heads bobbing around in there. So that's another good thing. So, yep. Did you have that on your list?
Nope. I still have one thing left that y'all don't know about, I'm pretty sure.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Sanker. And Mr. Braden, you had to be sore the next day, bending down to catch all those basketballs coming your way.
Yes, ma'am. I really
That's
enjoy
exciting.
it. Thanks, Mr. Sanker.
Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to also give a shout out to Mr. Braden. I mean, that he actually had some challenges that he had to overcome that night, but he knows that the city of Norwood depends on him to launch that rocket. So he made sure that it happened. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for doing
Appreciate
that.
that.
Any other unfinished business? Oh, I got some news. I followed up with the Ohio Department of Transportation this week and found out that our Safe Routes to School project had been put out for bid. The contracts have been awarded to, is it Adlita? Is that how you pronounce it, Mayor? You all work with them.
Yes.
Adlita. So they have gotten the award from the Ohio Department of Transportation. Construction will start, that was awarded on June the 28th. They will start construction sometime in September, early September after Labor Day. There will be a pre-construction meeting sometime in August where the city will be invited and the school board. So we'll sit down and talk about all the details, and when that happens, I'll let you know. The bids came in a little bit over estimate, but under the cap, so it will cost the city of Norwood nothing. So excited to finally have those two projects going. It will primarily be around Williams Avenue. We'll get 2 speed humps as well as some overhead lighting for the school zone and crosswalk realignment. It also involves a lot of the traffic or walk and don't walk signs around each of Sharpsburg and Norwood View, and as well as along Sherman Avenue and down, all the way down Sherman to Sharpsburg. So there'll be some upgrades of crosswalks and signage and things like that. So like the main corridor where kids walk from West Norwood if they have to walk to Sharpsburg. So all of that will be redone hopefully sometime in early September. So very good news. Deb Robinson and I are ecstatic to finally get something done. So excited to have that. Mrs. Hanrahan.
I want to start off with some good news and to say thank you to Larry McCafferty, who wrote us a very nice letter. Some of us, I see, was sent to some. He was helped with a plumbing problem he had in the city. And he wrote a very nice letter, and he was saying thank you to Jim Grubb, who came after hours, and what a wonderful job he did, and how professional he was. But I would also like to thank Pete Tepe, because this was a situation, there was a misunderstanding somewhere, and the gentleman wasn't going to have water all night after having the water turned off for some plumbing work. And immediately, Pete Tepe, you know, he said, I will make sure it's taken care of within the next 15 minutes, and he did. So I'd also like to thank Pete Tepe for that. It's great to work together.
Yeah, thank you. Did they receive copies of the letter?
No, he did not.
Perhaps we...
So I can, thank you.
Perhaps we should, as a council, can you write a letter thanking them and include, can we have a copy of the letter
Sure.
to include with that? We always hear when things go wrong, and rarely do we hear when things go right, so I always like to let people know when they did something right.
And it's also another, it's another indication of when you have a problem, that's what your council people are here for. And call us, and hopefully we can help.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Hanrahan. I'll get that letter off. Mr. Bonsall?
Thank you, Madam President. So I just wanted to say, thank you to Pete and the Public Works as well. So we had the Shakespeare in the Park at Northwoods Park. I guess it was 2 weekends ago, and probably at least 200 people were there. It was a really
It's a lot. It's hot.
Yeah, it was warm, but it was a very big success. So Pete and Public Works guys, they made sure that the grass was mowed. They made sure that we had trash cans and everything else that was needed for it. And I think that the show was very good. It was very enjoyable, and so yeah, it was a great time. And I think there's going to be at least one more. I don't know. I'd love to pass it off to Councilwoman Stevenson to announce
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Ms. Stevenson?
Thank you. I was going to wait to new business, but to echo what Mr. Bonsall just shared, we will have another partnership on August 1st. We will have a production of Romeo and Juliet. Ooh. It will be at the Upper Millcrest Park at 7 p.m. That's a Wednesday evening. It's August 1st, Upper Millcrest Park, which is where we gathered last year, the first time they came to Norwood. So all are welcome. Again, August 1st, it's a Wednesday, 7 p.m., Romeo and Juliet.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. Mrs. Hanrahan?
This has been a wonderful meeting, thank you, and I hate to do this and say what I need to say here. Yeah. Last week I was on vacation. It was a wonderful vacation, and I am so thankful I had no internet connection and very little phone connection, because apparently there were a lot of unhappy people in the city. And I just need to say that we should be working as a team here. And there's been a lot of conversation about the change in the table of organization for the police department. We all know it's been an issue for a week. And, I hear all this talking and fighting, and I'm not on Facebook, I don't get on those pages, about all the ugly Facebook posts and arguments and fights, which just feeds discontent and division. We, as a council and as administration, we're supposed to be supporting our departments and not contribute to what I think is failures in fighting with these people. And I don't mean these people, our coworkers. And I think we really just need to pay attention to that and be careful of what we do and say. We should be not, and I'm not talking financial, there's always going to be your financial differences, but we should be supporting and working with these people to make them succeed, or these departments. And with that, I need your guidance, Madam President, because I'm not sure what to do here. If we wanted to have discussion about this, and I believe it concerns contracts and legal issues, is this something that's permissible to put into, that we could have an executive session at the next meeting, or is this something that can be discussed on the open floor?
If it involves contract negotiations, it is one of the things that you can use to go into executive session to discuss. Mr. Mayor?
I'd appreciate a comment on that, Ben. I'm not sure which direction you was going, Mrs. Hanrahan, that we should work closer with the employees. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the fighting that I'm seeing, it does no good to have public fighting and to have this all going back and forth when we're the administrator, you're the or not you did, I don't know, I didn't see any posts. I know there were posts, I know there was fighting, and it doesn't do the city any good to be fighting with these departments. We need to get together and work with them. And that's what my point is.
Well, let me bring you up news. You did not see me on there, and you will
I didn't say I did.
I know that, and you will not see me on there. First of all, to clear it up, if you remember right, I came to council in June and wrote you a letter, and we went to the Civil Service Commission to reduce rank. They passed it, and we said that the reason we wanted to reduce rank was so we can eliminate some officers so we can have more patrolmen. And so nobody would lose their job. It would go through attrition. That was the sole intent. Now, it comes down to, where did those numbers come from? Where did I get those numbers? And nobody's asked that question. So, I'll give you a document dated March 26, 2018 from the Chief of Police. And it says that we should reduce exactly that. That we should reduce those numbers to exactly what I asked for. I would suggest to attrition reducing the number of lieutenants from 5 down to 3. I would also suggest reducing the number of sergeants from 8 down to 6. Now, and along with the captain. And so we took that, because what has happened over the time is that supervision of personnel has been reduced for lieutenants and the captain. So they're no longer supervising people. And my theory was, if we can save money, if you can take an $86,000 a year lieutenant, or a $93,000 a year captain, or $108,000 a chief, you gotta have a chief, but you can reduce a captain. This also saves money, and it also promotes people on the street. In additional correspondence that I received from the chief, he said that him and the captain had talked to personnel leaving the department. And part of the problems they put down for leaving the department was there was no opportunity other than to work in patrol. That was the reason we were told. So the intent was to increase personnel, with increased patrolmen, which puts more police officers on the street. It opens the possibility to let police officers work in CIS. Now, the chief did say we need to hire some civilians, and I agree. So if you can replace an $86,000 a year lieutenant with a $40,000 or $35,000 a year clerk, you're saving money and increasing the efficiency of the department. That was the whole intent. The other issue was is we had to do it before any vacancies come. Because civil service, you know, one of civil service's obligation, don't want to get myself in trouble, but 124, I think the Ohio Revised goes that one of the reasons that they can reduce rank, I believe this states, is for financial reasons. We are in a fiscal emergency. So I just didn't say, okay, I want to do this. This was a suggestion by the chief. Now, he did say that we should have something in place for civilian personnel. I agree with him. He's exactly right. But we've only lost one. So, you know, there's not much planning that goes involved. I'll do the planning if he wants me to. You know, as these people go away, if they retire, which will take 2 or 3 years, then we can replace them with civilian personnel. Other departments have them. So when everybody was on there, the way I understand it, you know, all these things being said, not one person, not one, has walked through that door to talk to me about it. I've been all over this city. Not one person has said so. So this is an effort to, like everything else, to try to maintain our service and yet lower our operating cost. Everybody keeps saying we've got to do something, we've got to do something. Well, when you try to do something, it's painful, and I understand that. But if we keep going down the same road and we make no attempt to change things, we're never going to get out of it. Nobody will lose their job. Nobody will get demoted. Nobody will get laid off. That was the whole intent. And it is a labor issue. But the record, the letter I sent you is a public record. That was the whole intent of sending that letter. And I don't know how much clearer I can be. I have yet to say anything on this matter. It's been beat around, you know.
But with that, are you concerned, I mean, did this go to the Wage and Benefit Committee first? Did it need to? Are there concerns, because we just signed a contract with the police department. And they have a table of organization in there. Are these concerns?
We had to go to civil service first. See, there's that conflict between 124 of the Ohio Revised Code, civil service, and then 4117. That's the labor negotiations. So we had to go to eliminate it first. And then if they file a grievance or do anything, then we move from there into either arbitration or fact-finding. But the contractor's up, I think, with the police department this year. So we'll start in contract negotiations with them later this year. But we had to make a move. If we do not, and these promotions occur, there are promotions that'll stay in effect for years. And there won't be another opportunity for a long time. It's simply a way of saying that we want to reduce our operating cost. And you can't reduce your operating cost by wishing people the thing away. Anybody could do a lot of things. So we're going to do a study. We're going to do everything we can. That's our job.
But was a study done to see how this would affect the department?
There's going to be studies going to be done.
But it's already, the civil service already,
Yes.
they already did it, and then we'll do a study to see how it's going to affect the department.
We went on, the reason we did it was the number didn't come out of my office. I just didn't arbitrarily say, I think we'll do this. The chief suggested it. And we did it. Now, he did say that we need to hire civilians, but the number came from the chief of police. And I believe he said he asked for a reduction.
Yes, he did.
So the number came from the chief, not from me. It didn't come from me.
But I think he also said at that time, if I'm not, just from what I'm hearing, that, you know, he actually thought this needed to be discussed, a plan be worked on, and you go to the benefit, the wage and benefit. And from what I'm hearing is it wasn't discussed with the chief, it wasn't discussed, it was just done. And that's, you know, that's why I'm asking these. I don't know, and I didn't even want to bring this up to council, the legalities of it and the contracts.
The chief wrote me in March and made these suggestions. We discussed it with our legal counsel on how to do it. We went ahead and moved. Now, what's the planning going to be? You know, when 2 more readings, then we'll take the savings and hire a clerk.
Well, even with that said, I just want to say that the ugliness going on with it and the back and forth on Facebook, and I've had nasty comments sent to me. It's just, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be working with them. And I'm not saying you did it. I don't think you do post.
Here's the way it works. If you agree with them or they agree with you, everybody's fine. But the first time you say, I disagree, then you don't care about the safety. You don't like them. It's personal, you know. And my theory is this. I want this city to be safe. I live here. A lot don't live here. I am here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want as many cops on the street as I can get. I want as many firemen on the street that I can get if I have a heart attack. I live here. And so my family's protection and yours and everybody else is number one. And so if somebody gets upset, I don't know. My job is to reduce our costs, and that's what I continue to do. Now, council says, I don't want you to negotiate. I don't want you to go to arbitration. I want you to do whatever they want. That's what I'll do. Just give me the direction to do that, and I'll give them whatever they want. You tell me what you want to give them, and we'll do it. Just tell me, and I'll do it. If you want to give them 3%, if you want to hire 10, 15 new cops, fine. You cut them down to 45, if you remember right. You cut them down to 45. That's in the contract also. They're filing a grievance on that. But that's what council did. But if you want to kick the number back up to 50, and you want to give them a 5% raise, just take the vote and tell me, and we'll do it.
That's not what I'm saying. My whole point is, if we want this city to survive, and we need to start working together. And that's my whole point. We need to start working together, all the departments.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sanahan. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to respond to the previous council member and just a few things that were said. Any responses that were made online were made after, and I was the one that, I'm the subject that she was talking about. I have made some responses online to try to educate the public on what we as elected officials have to deal with. And for the past, I talked to somebody yesterday that had served on council, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago. And this person spent pretty much the entire time that they were on council, they spent looking for ways to cut everywhere there was, because you cannot touch the police and fire department because our labor agreements have a table of organization in them that we are supposed to be at X number of level. But our fiscal emergency plan, we couldn't afford to be at that level. We just can't. We cannot continue to ignore the infrastructure in this city. We cannot continue to ignore the parks. We cannot continue to ignore the community center. We cannot continue to ignore the pool. We can't even continue to ignore the equipment that our public safety people actually have to use in order to get to the fires or get to the whatever incidents or patrolling the neighborhoods. We have 4 different layouts for our police cruisers because we get them, we can't afford to make them all uniform. When we basically prioritize spending money on the cruisers and not on designing the cruisers. And so we've got 2 leftover cruisers that we just bought this year from Westchester that they have about 50 or 60,000 miles on them, which is about the time that you really need to be replacing police cruisers. And so we had to buy 2 used ones from them. We got a good deal on them, but do our officers really like to be patrolling in them? I don't think so. And I think I think the equipment that our officers have to use is a major driver into them wanting to leave for other departments that have a lot more money for the equipment that they need. This council remembers a couple years ago, we had the body armor incident where we didn't have the funds to purchase body armor, and we had, thankfully, Energy Alliance has stepped up and provided some funds for that, and we were able to make that happen. But we had 7 or 15 days, some number of days where we had officers, literally like a quarter of our force that was on administrative duties because they were the armor that they had I guess gone out of warranty, so it wasn't usable after a certain date. And the department, I guess rightfully so, didn't want to put them in danger. And so this, and then before that, this city we have set the record. We have set the record for the longest city, the longest municipality, or actually any government entity in the state of Ohio that has been in fiscal watch. We were there longer than any other entity in fiscal watch. And the only reason that we left fiscal watch was because we went into fiscal emergency. That's the reason. And so we have been trying to work, and I know elected officials way before us have been trying to work with our unions for years. And frankly, I think it's time that the public understands exactly what all of us understand kind of on council and the decisions that we have to make. Because right now, if something doesn't change, the next things that's going to be cut, we're going to be closing the pool, we're going to be closing and selling the community center, and we're going to be closing the health department. Those are the 3 items that are likely going to be the next cut when we have a downturn. Because what happens is when we do have a downturn, the unions, maybe they don't get raises and stuff, but we can't cut there, so we have to find other places to cut. We have to find things to close. And then when the downturn, we actually get back into a better place, we have to start giving raises and stuff back to the union. So we don't actually get to open up the pools anymore. We don't get to hire the people anymore. Healthcare costs are always going up. So I guess long story short, I'm just trying to say is that I think it is important for the public to be informed. I don't think it's attacking somebody in order to disagree with them, in order to provide an alternate viewpoint from, I guess, our experiences. I really am encouraged, frankly, by this council and really how united that we've been about various issues that we've had to deal with. And so I just want to say that to anybody that thinks that I'm attacking them, feel free to reach out to me, give me a call. I just sat down today with a gentleman that vehemently disagreed with me about a certain issue. And we had a discussion today, and we were able to kind of talk things out. I was able to educate him and kind of show him, there. And he still is, likes his opinion, but he also understands that where I'm coming from and where this council has to come from. And so, I just want people to know at home that, we really, again, I said this about 3 or 4 months ago, that we as a council care, we as a city care, we want to pave your streets, we want to fix the parks. Our fiscal recovery plan, even though it did have to cut a few police officers and a few firefighters, it put $2 million over 4 years into our street fund that we're going to be using to repave streets. And so we get attacked for putting stuff in our street fund. We got attacked in fact fund, well, I say attacked, but it was brought up as a counterpoint that the city has all this money because we're going to be putting money to repave streets. To me, that doesn't seem, it just seems like a function of a city is to take care of your infrastructure. And so to have that used as a counterpoint that there's all this money sitting around for raises, it's absurd. And so, Madam President, I'm going to yield the rest of my time, but I just want citizens to know they're welcome to reach out to me. My phone number is on the city website. My email address is there. I love sitting down with people and talking. I love chatting with people on the phone. I appreciate our police and fire departments, and especially the great work that they do, but this city is not going to be able to survive if we keep going the direction that we're going. I think in 20 years, citizens are going to be so fed up with just crumbling everything that they're going to be desperate for a change. And so I don't know what that's going to mean, but I'd rather keep the city of Norwood. I don't want to see that happen. So, and that's what I work on every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ponso. Mrs. Hannerhead.
Be my last thing to say. This wasn't about a fiscal speech, and I'm sorry you had to do that. This is about we're council people and we're held to a higher standard. And I just want to remind everybody we need to respect those other people who work in the city who disagree with us. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hannerhead.
Mr. Mayor? I'm going to find him. Finish it. This is not a good time to be a chief of police. This is not a good time to be a chief of the fire department. This is not a good time to be a council. And it damn sure isn't a good time to be a mayor. But these are just tough times. These people, everybody has their position, and they're going to defend that position. And as long as they're civil about it, if the union or the bargaining unit's mad at me, I don't get mad at them for doing their job. But it's just not a good time, and somebody's got to have to make some tough decision. And that includes everybody here. This is not easy on you people, and I know that. It's not easy on that chief of either department, and I know that. The bargaining units, they do what they do. My dad was the head of the fire department union. He got punished for negotiating. And let me close on one thing humorous. I tried to do that. I negotiated with the police and fire on the police department's part and negotiated with my dad on the fire department's part. And we were sitting having adult beverage after negotiation. And somebody said, boy, it would be nice if the next mayor was a policeman or fireman. And my dad said, no. The last thing you want is the next cop or next mayor, fireman to be mayor. That's funny how things work out. But I'm telling you, everybody's got their job. It's a tough job on everybody. And I respect those that are trying. I hold no ill will against them. Obviously, I'm not their favorite person, but I think a lot of people will respect if you do what you believe in. And if you don't get your way, you don't get your way. But I think we've got an obligation to try. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any other? Ms. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam President. I rather like being a council member. And I think most of the time it's because I realize I've learned a lot about where I live. And with that in mind, I'd like to ask the members of council to consider having a committee of the whole meeting where we bring in our legal counsel and ask them to educate us and the general public on exactly what is the process of negotiation. What does it mean when we talk about fact-finding and arbitration? What does it mean when we have these steps that are underway? The mayor talked about a process that's not one and done. He made it very clear something happens with civil service, negotiations will happen. And while I think there are valiant attempts to educate the public, I realize there's a lot of distrust of elected officials everywhere. And so I'd love to hear folks' thoughts on what do you think about bringing in our legal counsel to create a flow chart and just walk through what does the law that governs the state and our municipality actually provide for?
Thoughts? Mr. Clark?
I think that would be an absolutely wonderful idea. I think there's a lot of misconceptions going around from things I've seen. So I don't know that that was a motion, but I think that that is a wonderful idea. I would fully support that.
Ms. Stevens?
I'd like to move that we call a committee of the whole meeting and invite our legal counsel to talk us and the public through what it means to negotiate contracts.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Any discussion? I will check and see if maybe we can make that on the same day as the already scheduled committee of the whole. Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I won't be able to be at the scheduled one just due to a class I have at Xavier. So I would appreciate if we could do it on a day that's not a Monday or a Wednesday, but if it has to be that day, that's totally
We can
fine.
do it another time. Depending on what happens. It depends on their availability as well. I'm assuming you want the person from Nelson Clemens or our city attorney?
I think having both would be appropriate. Definitely, our outside legal counsel, I think, would be important for speaking specifically to, I think, general law. I'm not asking this to really talk through our specific details of Norwood. I just want us and the public to be clear on what is the process, what is our fiduciary, and what is our legal responsibility.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Hanrahan?
I just want to ask, how much of this is Mr. Moore? Does he have that information also?
Mr. Mayor, do
I mean,
you know?
could he come in and answer our questions before we actually pay somebody to come in and sit at council again? Is he qualified to do that?
I don't know. I can tell you this. I would guess that Mr. Moore would want us to go with Clemens Nelson because
Okay.
they handle the dealing. Now,
Okay.
I'm not going to speak. I probably did something wrong there. I'm not giving a legal opinion. I would guess.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll check and see. So we'll just, the motion on the floor then is to place the matter of fact-finding, arbitration, negotiations, in general, as an educational item in the committee of the whole, and I will check with Mr. Moore and see when those dates are available for those, for both of those people. Is there any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Any other unfinished business? Any new business? Mr. Thompson?
Thank you very much. Just quickly wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow, Wednesday the 11th at 7 p.m., we will be having a Parks, Rec, Streets and Infrastructure Committee meeting. We will be talking just a couple of agenda items, further discussing potential of getting some basketball hoops up at Waterworks, and also going over our Adopt a Park program packet that planning has put together. So should be a good meeting. A couple things a lot of people are interested in to talk about. We'll have that.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. So tomorrow at 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers, Parks and Recreation. Any other new business? Ms. Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd also like to announce a committee meeting on, I believe it'll be Thursday, August 2nd at 7 p.m. Usually first Thursdays is what I try to hold. Economic Development, Community Engagement will gather that evening, and we'll be able to hear updates on several of our goal areas. I'm pleased to announce that there are new opportunities with Hamilton County's Development Corporation, LISC, as well as the City of Norwood that will be exploring in support of new businesses, as well as some of the ideas that have come to light through the quality of life planning process. We'll also hear an update from that steering committee at the time, and any other goal-related updates that are available.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. So Thursday, August 2nd, 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other new business? We'll move on to communication. First is a letter from Mayor Williams regarding a request for the Committee of the Whole meeting.
To Norwood City Council, as you are well aware, the administration, Joe Gears, along with Clemens, Nelson and Associates, have been in negotiations with city bargaining units in an effort to lower our operating costs. In the meantime, complaints and concerns have been raised on other issues. These are legitimate concerns. I am requesting Council as a whole to consider the following issues in an open meeting to discuss these requests and, if at all possible, fund the requests. 1. To address the overgrown vegetation and maintenance in the parks and elsewhere, hire 6 to 7 new personnel for public works with another $30,000 for equipment. 2. To address the concerns on Section Avenue, fund the resurfacing to match Cincinnati. 3. To address the concerns on Cypress Way, fund the resurfacing to match Cincinnati. 4. Purchase 4 new police vehicles for the police department instead of used vehicles from outlying police agencies. 5. Purchase a new gym floor for the kids at the community center. 6. Place into motion a long-range financial plan for expensive fire equipment. I believe by taking this action, it will inform the residents of our situation. This meeting should be Council of the Whole and not just the Finance Committee, and open to the public to address their concerns. Thanks for your time. Respectfully, Thomas F. Williams, Mayor, City of Norwood.
It's your pleasure. We can discuss them on council floor now as a whole, or I think some of the answers are yes, Mr. Bonsall.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I would move that we receive and file the letter and send a letter back to the mayor's office stating that there are no funds to address these concerns, and that they'll be addressed at the next Fiscal Recovery Commission meeting in probably September. We'll be looking at redoing the plan. So, I mean, I don't know why we would meet on this, and I think the mayor understands. I mean, we don't have any money. I'm happy to meet on it. I mean, I'm always happy to talk about the city business, but we have a fiscal recovery plan that's already laid out that we all contributed to, and so these things don't fit into that recovery plan it's laid out right now. They could, but they just don't fit this one that we have. We could always amend it.
Is that a second to the motion?
Sorry. Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Discussion, Mr. Thompson.
I just wanted to ask the mayor, was the reason for this request, you just wanted to have this discussion in a public forum where we could talk about this and where the citizens can talk about this, knowing what Mr. Bonsall just said?
That's a valid point. The idea of the letter was simply that I hear it every day, see it every day, read it every day, and hear the complaints. And they come to me, or I'm the basis for it. And it's like, these are all the things that people are complaining about all the time. And it doesn't seem the point doesn't seem to get across that we have no money. And I'm the one that has to tell them that. We have no money. This all falls into the same thing over and over again. This is what people want. This is what they ask all the time. Well, where's the money going? Let me be candid. Hell, I'm not an accountant. I can't honestly tell you where every dime goes. But I know that they want to know. I mean, we've brought in 3,000 jobs, $450 million in development, but our cost is high. And then when they look around, and Cincinnati got mad at us, and when they see half the street paved, it makes us look foolish. It makes us look foolish. Who's the mayor? They don't talk to you. They don't ask you. They ask me or Joe Gears. And so when you hear people say, why can't I get those bushes cut? Why can't I get this? With what and who? That was the intent of the letter. For this council to come out and say, we don't have the money to do that. And what are we going to do about it? That's the intent of the letter. Maybe I should have done it, or maybe I don't know. But it's time that we start addressing things head on.
Mr. Thompson?
To me, I mean, I honestly think that the points you raised in the letter were good points, and to me are the kinds of issues that should go into a standardized kind of capital improvements plan for the city. To me, that's something we should, I don't think that we have, and we probably should have as a parallel document that goes with the fiscal recovery plan and the standard budget plan that we have for the year. Then how are we going to work in these things? Because these things that you mentioned in this letter are things that eventually have to be done. I mean, the paving streets, the equipment for our firefighters and our police officers, these are the kinds of things that we can't ignore forever and that needs some kind of long-term plan. And a capital improvement plan typically addresses those, and it might be a way for us to see it in parallel with financial recovery.
I couldn't agree with you more. You're exactly right. But then you got to finish it off by saying, we live here. We see it every day. And so do other people that live here. You're exactly right.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. You are correct. And as part of the fiscal recovery, it is a requirement that eventually, once we get all of these bills paid up and know exactly how bad we are, the fiscal recovery plan does require a capital improvements plan to be developed in side by side in cooperation with the financial recovery plan. We just haven't gotten there yet. As a commission to even begin that work, or Anna Mary and April have not gotten there because trying to increase or to look at the financial practices that we have to get policies and procedures in place, and then the next step is to develop that we know will be pent-up demand for capital improvement projects. So eventually there will be a plan that will be required that with the help of the state auditors to be developed. That's part of, before we can ever come out of fiscal recovery, that's part of the plan. To Mr. Thompson.
I think that's something that's important for, I mean, I know we all realize that, but for residents to realize that too, is that eventually, hopefully sooner than later, they will be able to have a document, a public document, that shows how these improvements will be made over the foreseeable future, and it's something we have to be committed to, us here, and I think the stronger our commitment to it, the better, because that means, we all won't be here forever, or probably until, this is going to continue long after we are part of council. So I think the stronger commitment we have to getting it right now, the better chance we have of future councils continuing to follow and improve upon and see through on the planning that we're doing to get ourselves out of this fiscal problem.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I agree. Ms. Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam President. Listening to the conversation, wonder if there are steps that we could take in discussion to prepare for creating a plan. I know that right now the fiscal recovery plan is over 5 years, and I know for myself I've never made a capital improvement plan or given input to one, and so I'm wondering if maybe we might consider amending the motion to break it apart, to just receive and file the letter today, and then consider writing a letter that expresses, if it is, the interest of council to begin thinking about a comprehensive plan.
Mr. Bonso?
Yeah, I'm fine with amending the motion. And if there's council members that want to meet to have a committee of the whole meeting on this, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. Like, so I'm definitely fine withdrawing my motion. You know, especially if it's to talk about, you know, why we can't fund these. And I think that's really the biggest barrier. I mean, I feel like we all want all of these things funded. Every single thing on here I think is important. These kids at the community center especially, you all know my passion on that. They've been watching these buildings go up, you know, these ivory towers or whatever you want to call them, and they've got all these office people in them, and yet they're still playing on floors from 1940s and stuff when that thing was St. Elizabeth School. So, like I said, I want all these things in here. If we want to meet, I'm happy to that, but I agree with Ms. Stevenson. We probably should talk about the capital improvements plan. So if it's going to be something we're going to have to make, it needs to be something then that, you know, our unions know about and know that, hey, do you support this? Do you not support this? What can we do to work on this? And who knows, maybe we can have a breakthrough with some communication. I'm not super optimistic, but it'd be great if we could. So yeah, like I said, I'm totally agreeable to amend the motion.
I can certainly contact the state auditors, our advisors. Our next Financial Planning and Supervision Commission meeting is on August the 21st, and I don't know if they can offer some guidance prior to that. If there's something that we can do prior to them initiating this capital improvements plan, I'll be happy to do that and report back to you. And if we need to call a committee of the whole to get started, we can certainly do that. Whatever you like. Right now, the motion, as I understand it, is to receive and file the letter and to write a letter back to the mayor indicating that while these are all items that we know we need to address in the future, there are no funds to currently address them. Is that correct, Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, and if Mr. Thompson's amenable to it, then to add that we would like to start working on a capital improvements plan, and it's the intent of council that we'll do that.
Add that into the letter back to the mayor?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Next is a letter from Mayor Williams regarding mayor's court fines for the month of June.
Dear Madam President and members of council, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of June 2018. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Thomas F. Williams, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Mr. Thompson.
Move to receive and file the letter.
Seconded by Mrs. Hanahan. Is there any discussion? Excuse me. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Excuse me, I will remind council that our next regularly scheduled meeting would be on July the 24th, but that is the night of the parade, and so we traditionally do not, excuse me, we do not have a second meeting in July. So our next regularly scheduled meeting then will be August the 14th. So just so you all and the public know that. And Norwood Day at Coney is July 25th, so a nice community event. Folks can come out and enjoy it. We have no absent members. Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adjourn.
Seconded by Mrs. Hanahan. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned.